Good evening, and welcome once again to our Government at Work program. I remind you that this program is being brought to you by the CCM-led Nevis Island Administration and hosted by yours truly, Keith Scarborough. It's a program designed to inform and educate all citizens and residents at home and abroad of the many positive developments that are taking place here on the island of Nevis. This program is broadcast live on VON Radio every Thursday evening from 8 to 9:30 p.m. Then rebroadcast on Nevis Television on Sunday evenings from 8:30 p.m. This program can also be seen on Facebook and YouTube shortly thereafter. It's another wonderful Thursday evening here on the island of Nevis, and it's a time when we all look forward to a night filled with information as it pertains to the continued good governance of the CCM-led Nevis Island Administration. I, for one, look forward each week to go deep into discussions with the ministers of government, the permanent secretaries, the special advisors, the department heads, as well as top officials from the various statutory corporations, to ensure that you, our listeners and viewers to this program, are given as much truthful information as possible, especially in times like these, when some has quite obviously set out to mislead. We also make every effort to keep the discussions as frank and as honest as possible, so that the listeners and viewers to this program will get a true reflection of what's happening here in the land that we all call home. We shall take a short break, and when I return, I shall introduce my guest for this evening's program to you. So stay locked on to the powerhouse of the Eastern Caribbean, VON Radio 860 AM.
So right, St. Thomas is right, St. James is put together and build your land. Right, St. George's and St. Paul's together with St. John's. This land is enough for all to share. No reason to leave and go nowhere. Foreigners can come here from America and England. There is something mighty sweet about my land. And if the foreigners who live here can insist that it's here they're from, then I swear I'll never leave my native land. One people, one country.
Welcome back. Folks, this evening we have decided to rebroadcast the first half of the budget presentation that was delivered by Premier and Minister of Finance, the Honourable Mark A.G. Brantley, at the House of Assembly in Charlestown on Tuesday, December 2nd, 2025. So let us all sit back and give a listen to the Minister of Finance as he delivers his budget proposals for the year 2026.
Madam President, I rise to move that the bill shortly entitled Nevis Appropriation 2026 Bill 2025 be read a second time and to commence the debate on this annual rite of passage, which is our budget discussion. Madam President, you have noted that we have obtained the fiat from Her Honor, our Deputy Governor General, as required by law, and so with your permission, I will proceed to read the customary budget address and by so doing commence the discussion and the debate that is to follow. Madam President, I beg leave to move the second reading of the bill shortly entitled the Appropriation Ordinance 2026-2025. It is truly an honor and privilege for me this morning to rise and present this budget under the theme, A Purpose-Driven Agenda, Building Our Sustainable Future. Madam President, the budget that I present today reflects our collective commitment to responsible governance and prudent fiscal management. This exercise annually affords us the opportunity to account for our stewardship while providing the opportunity for us to seek approval for the implementation of our plans and the proposals for the upcoming fiscal year. The programs I will outline seek to lay the framework for development in a manner that harmonizes my administration's policies with the plans of our private sector partners in a way that will stimulate economic growth and lay the foundation for building our sustainable future. The theme of this presentation also builds on the strategy adopted in my last budget presentation, where the focus was on investing to build a framework to support a resilient and sustainable economy. It was just a few months ago that we celebrated our 42nd anniversary of self-determination and nationhood under a similar theme. Developing a sustainable future then and now continues to be our goal. Both themes emphasize that our nation's continuous progress should endeavor to fulfill our present needs without harming future generations' ability to meet their own needs. In our relentless efforts to improve conditions, adapt to new challenges, and find solutions for development, we must manage our resources in a way that does not deplete them for generations to come. In short, perpetual progress towards a sustainable future is a dynamic process of securing the livelihood and well-being of both our current and future generations. Madam President, as we look towards a sustainable future, we must be prepared to implement bold and transformative initiatives. We must continue to evaluate our economic outlook, our progress in healthcare, education, human development, and national security, our infrastructural development, agriculture, food security, green energy development, housing, and poverty alleviation. These are all key factors that impact our sustainable future. A thorough review of these will clearly show that over the years we have made significant gains in constructing the building blocks that allow our citizens and residents to enhance and sustain the quality of their lives and create conditions for them to reach their fullest potential. Indeed, individually and collectively, we are performing exceptionally well in our Social Progress Index. I must make it clear that the future sustainability of our island lies not only in the hands of this competent government, but it also rests on the broad shoulders of our citizens and residents. Put differently, it is everybody's business. Madam President, there's no doubt that in our quest for sustainability, we shall face challenges. As a small and developing state, the challenges to growing our economy will sometimes seem insurmountable. The primary reason is that our economy is so intertwined with the international community that external shocks will inevitably have a negative ripple effect on the local economy. Slow and sluggish growth rates in major economies, high rates of unemployment worldwide, a saturated citizenship by investment market, disrupted supply chains, increasing prices of basic food items, continued challenges in our banking and financial sector, and the decline in business opportunities, especially in the retail sector, arising directly from globalization, are factors which have seriously impeded the opportunities for our small island economy to continue to flourish in a sustainable way. Additionally, the issue of climate change, which is a factor beyond our control, will affect our thrust for sustainability, especially as it relates to our agricultural sector. Climate change is not of our own doing, but poses a significant challenge to food security and sustainability. We are indeed grateful to God, Madam President, that over the past few years, our economy has been spared the wrath of any major hurricanes or tropical storms. We are all aware of the devastating effect they can have on fragile economies like ours, posing a real danger of eroding the gains we have made in a very short time. We must continue to make our economy more resilient so that we can better withstand the negative shocks from these natural disasters. Madam President, the answer to overcoming these challenges lies in our ability to innovate while creating new opportunities in a diversified and sustainable economy. This is essential if we are to improve the socioeconomic outcomes for all citizens and residents of the island of Nevis. Over the past 5 years, we have made significant investments toward achieving this improved and diversified economy. At every turn, we have kept the best interests of our people at the forefront of our development agenda. our quest to build a sustainable future is not new. It is an agenda that we've been charting ever since I assumed leadership of this administration. This is evident by the substantial investments we have made in our infrastructural development and our education system through the expansion and upgrading of our schools. We have invested in our youth through a range of programs, including the introduction of technical vocational education training, TVET, as a means of equipping them with technical skills to face the future with confidence. We have taken steps towards energy sustainability through our pursuit of geothermal energy development, which is part of our efforts to make Nevis a clean and green environment. This solid platform for growth and development, which my government has laid over the past several years, has no doubt created an impetus for acceleration into the future. We must now seek to introduce new and bold ideas for growth and development to continue that acceleration. The South Coast development, enabled by the Special Sustainability Development Zone Act, is one such new and bold initiative. As we chart this new course, it is incumbent on us to prepare ourselves positively to embrace change. Let us all work towards repositioning ourselves and seek to capitalize on the tremendous opportunities that this and other transformative developments will bring to our sustainable future. Let me turn my attention now, Madam President, to the international and regional economic developments. As we turn to the regional and economic outlook, the global economy is expected to enter a new phase of volatility and adjustment over the medium term. This will be driven by a variety of factors, such as persistent geopolitical tensions, trade policy shifts, particularly as it relates to the United States of America's implementation of tariffs, the resultant financial market uncertainty, and the current tensions in the Southern Caribbean Sea surrounding events in Venezuela. The International Monetary Fund, in its World Economic Outlook report for October 2025, titled Global Economy in Flux, Prospects Remain Dim, predicts that the global economic growth rate will decelerate from 3.3% in 2024 to 3.2% in 2025 and 3.1% in 2026. Advanced economies are expected to only grow by 1.5% in 2025 and 2026, while emerging economies will fare slightly better, with growth prospects predicted to be around 4% for 2025 and 2026. The report also downgraded the growth outlook for the USA, with growth moving from 2.8% in 2024 to a mere 2% in 2025 and a slight rebound to 2.1% for 2026. This global outlook is indeed dim, and the more the global economy becomes fragmented, the higher the risk that this outlook could worsen. Madam President, as a small island developing state, with our economy so intertwined with the global economy, it is no secret that the IMF's dim outlook will result in negative effects on our local economy. These effects will manifest themselves in higher import bills, increased fuel prices, growing current account deficits, inflation, reduced foreign capital inflows and foreign investments, and a reduction in development aid and an increase in the level of our public debt. It therefore behooves us to continue to build upon our gains and to implement strategies that ensure long-term economic prosperity for all members of our society, without depleting our natural resources or causing social instability. This push for a sustainable economy should not merely focus on short-term profits, but on the continuous well-being of our people and the environment. Madam President, the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank has forecast that the economy of St. Kitts and Nevis will expand marginally by 2.5% in 2025. having only attained a growth rate of 1.17% in 2024. The forecast growth rates of 2.5% for 2025 and 3.29% for 2026 are an improvement in the outlook for the Federation. The initial expectation for 2025 was 3.42%, which highlights and brings into focus the real impacts of the current global uncertainty on the lives and livelihoods of the citizens of small island states like ours. In comparison, the ECCB indicates that the Eastern Caribbean Currency Union grew by 3.68% in 2024 and is predicted to see growth of 3.18% and 3.4% in 2025 and 2026 respectively. To sum it up and put it in context, St. Kitts Nevis is lagging behind the growth rate predicted for the overall Eastern Caribbean Currency Union. This growth pattern is relatively aligned with that forecast by the IMF for the global economy. The IMF, in its report, did project that global economic growth would remain broadly flat, decelerating from 3.3% in 2023 to 3.1% by 2029. Despite this, Madam President, the ECCB has set a minimum real GDP growth rate target of 5% for the ECCU member territories. To help its member countries strengthen their respective economies, the ECCB continues to provide policy advice on economic matters, public finance management, debt sustainability, and governance. We would like to extend our gratitude to the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank for its invaluable assistance over the years. Madam President, I now turn my attention to our domestic economic performance. As we examine our domestic economic performance, our recurrent expenditure budget for fiscal year 2025 was set at $203.82 million, while our total revenue expectations were $230.72 million. The recurrent revenue generated as of October 31st, 2025, amounted to $134.66 million, which represents an increase of $6.93 million or 5% when compared to the $127.72 million generated up to October 2024. And for those in the gallery, the reason you're hearing about October is that, of course, the year is not yet finished. So finance is only able to give us numbers up until the third quarter, that is the end of October. This recurrent revenue, coupled with the amount of $53.84 million, which includes funds from development aid and our share of revenue from the CBI program, resulted in an overall total revenue of $188.5 million. This represents an overall increase in total revenue of $0.77 million or 0.4% when compared to the $187.72 million collected up to October 31st, 2024. The tax revenue collected as of October 31st, 2025, amounted to $98.51 million. That represents an increase of $1.57 million or 2% when compared to the amount of $96.94 million collected in 2024. Although value-added tax collections were hamstrung by the National VAT Reduction Program, which was in place for the first half of fiscal year 2025, the receipts collected thus far remain a significant portion of recurrent revenue. VAT receipts collected as at October 31st, 2025, accounted for 35% of tax revenue and 26% of recurrent revenue. Other key contributors to the revenue for the administration include international financial services at 13%, social services levy at 8%, stamp duties at 8%, import duties at 8%, customs service charge at 7%, and water rates at 5% of recurrent revenue. Madam President, the total expenditure, consisting of both recurrent expenditure and capital expenditure amounted to $188.36 million for the period ended October 31st, 2025, a decrease of $15.05 million or 7% when compared to the outlay of $203.41 million for the corresponding period ending October 31st, 2024. Recurrent expenditure as at October 31st, 2025 amounted to $149.64 million, a decrease of $9.96 million or 6% when compared to the outlay of $159.6 million for the same period in 2024. My administration was able to keep its recurrent expenditure within the projected limit of $165.07 million for the period up to October 31st, 2025. This achievement was possible despite significant spending on personal emoluments, which made up approximately 50% of recurrent expenditure. Put differently, wages and salaries of public servants continue to eat up 50% of our recurrent expenditure. Goods and services accounting for 19%, and debt servicing consisting of both principal and interest payments, also accounting for 19% of recurrent expenditure, were also major contributors to the total recurrent expenditure. Capital expenditure for the period January to October 2025 was $38.72 million, a decline of $5.0 million or 12% lower than the $43.81 million outlay over the same period in 2024. Of this amount, 80% was primarily funded by direct government revenue, while the remaining 20% was funded through development aid and loans. Capital expenditure currently constitutes 21% of the total expenditure as at October 31st, 2025. Madam President, the capital expenditure for the fiscal year 2024 included an amount of $4.75 million spent on Culturama 50 renovations. Our Culturama 50 homecoming celebration was a major event not only for this administration but for the island of Nevis. We had not yet conceptualized the scale of renovation works at the time of preparing the 2024 budget. Once the scale of work was conceptualized early in the fiscal year, my cabinet took the decision to reallocate resources from other projects to facilitate these renovation works. This expenditure is entirely separate to the amounts allocated each year as a subvention for the hosting of Culturama. The subvention is primarily to supplement the revenue generated from the Culturama activities, to enable the Culturama Secretariat to make payments to patrons, vendors, and other persons providing services for hosting this annual event. Madam President, some good news. Our overall fiscal performance remains strong as of October 31st, 2025. Our primary balance has soared to a healthier surplus of $27.84 million, a substantial improvement from the $13.25 million surplus reported in October 2024. The overall balance also is trending in this direction, moving from a deficit of $3.16 million to a surplus of $11.6 million over the last 12 months. The fiscal gap has also narrowed significantly, moving from an initial deficit of $19.35 million at the end of October 2024 to a much smaller deficit of $3.52 million at the end of October 2025. Madam President, I want to pause there just to say that this report demonstrates that we are seeking to bring down expenditure while increasing revenue. And that, I think, is the formula that will achieve long-term sustainability in the government's finances. This government has always sought to ensure that the public accounts of the NIA are laid before the House within the timeline as mandated in our Constitution and our financial regulations. The report from the Director of Audit, which I have laid today would have referenced the office of the opposition leader. I want to just point that out at the outset, Madam President. The report of the Director of Audit, late today, references the office of the opposition leader, which is an error in wording. It should have read the office of the opposition, referring to the expenditure incurred for salaries and constituency allowances paid to members of the opposition. Therefore, Madam President, it should not be construed to mean expenditure relating to the upkeep of a physical office for the leader of the opposition. Ideally, this government would have no objections to maintaining such an office. But alas, the members opposite up until this time have failed to agree among themselves who should occupy the post of leader of the opposition. Soon as they agree, we will respond. Performance of the value-added tax. Madam President, as indicated earlier, the value-added tax continues to be a major revenue source for the administration. VAT revenue generated as of October 31st, 2025 stood at $34.62 million, representing 26% of total revenue. This is in line with the $34.81 million collected for the period October 31st, 2024. Of this, VAT revenue generated from the consumption of domestic goods and services stood at $21.9 million, representing 63% of total VAT collected to date, while the VAT revenue collected from international trade stood at $12.72 million, representing 37% of the total VAT collected to date. The total VAT revenue generated for the entire fiscal year 2024 was $42.15 million. It is anticipated that the total VAT revenue for this fiscal year will exceed that collected for 2024, as a large portion of this revenue is normally generated during the last quarter of the year, arising from the increased importation of items at the Customs Department and an uptick in activities at the start of the tourist season. The growth in VAT revenue for this fiscal year will be lower than anticipated, as our projections were negatively impacted by the decision at the federal level to grant temporary relief to our citizens through a reduction in the VAT rate from 17% to 13% for the first 6 months of the fiscal year. And let me pause here, Madam President, to point out to the House and to the public that this continues to create some difficulties in Nevis for our planning, because we would present our budget as we're doing today based on certain projections, based on existing tax rates, and then a week or two later the federal government presents its budget and sometimes announces tax and other fiscal impositions that then impact directly the budget presented in Nevis. We clearly need better coordination between the federal government in Bastille and the local government here in Nevis on such matters, Madam President. I am proud, however, to say that despite this decision made at the federal level to reduce the rate of VAT for the first 6 months of 2025, that through our collection efforts in Nevis, we are still anticipating that we will beat the benchmark that we set in terms of VAT collections. The VAT revenue of $21.9 million collected at the Inland Revenue Department was an increase of $1.19 million or 6% when compared to the $20.7 million generated for the corresponding period in 2024. Mark you, this is at a reduced rate of VAT for the first 6 months. We were still able to increase the amount collected by 6%. However, the VAT revenue of $12.72 million collected at the Customs Department decreased by $1.38 million or 10% in comparison to the $14.1 million collected for the same period in 2024. On further examination of the effects on revenue, it was noted that the VAT reduction relief program had a greater negative effect on the revenue generated at the Customs Department, as that incentive was geared towards entities in the 17% VAT tax bracket. The effect on VAT generated at our Inland Revenue Department was minimal, as most entities paying VAT to that department fell into the 10% VAT bracket. Nevertheless, this trend in VAT revenue collections is a clear indication that our economy is trending in the right direction. Let me look now at the question of our public debt. Madam President, as it relates to the status of our public debt, the Nevis Island Administration government debt stock portfolio as of October 31st, 2025 stood at $474.7 million, representing a 1% decrease from the $479.5 million recorded in December 31st, 2024. During this review period, domestic debt totaled $453.04 million, accounting for 95.4% of the total central government debt, while external debt amounted to $21.6 million, or 4.6% of the total. When combined with the debts of statutory corporations, the total public sector debt amounted to $541.5 million as of October 31st, 2025, reflecting a 1.35% decrease compared to $548.9 million recorded on December 31st, 2024. Our debt stock is high, but it is being reduced systematically by this government. With limited domestic resources, borrowing continues to play a vital role in driving our economic growth and development. Nevertheless, our borrowing strategy remains focused on securing low-cost financing instruments to ensure that the government's capacity to service its existing debt obligations is not compromised. During this fiscal period, in response to the growing demand for housing, the administration secured a $3.6 million loan from TDC Financial Services to finance the acquisition of some 36 acres of land at Garner's Estate in the St. James Parish. Additionally, my government negotiated a special financing arrangement with the St. Kitts Nevis Anguilla National Bank in the amount of $20 million for the purchase of significant lands to facilitate the proposed airport expansion project. Let me now move, Madam President, to job creation and employment. Let us, in that context, look at the state of the local economy. The primary measure of the state of any economy is its ability to create good quality and high-paying jobs. Similarly, the primary measure of the level of employment in our economy is the revenue generated from the social services levy, which is a direct charge on employment income. This is the most appropriate yardstick to measure growth in the number of people employed and in the level of personal income as well. Our revenue collection from Housing and Social Development Levy for the period January to October 2025 amounted to $11.29 million as compared to $12.33 million collected for the entire year of 2024. This is a clear indication that our rate of employment is trending upwards. I think that bears repetition, Madam President. Thus far, as of October this year, we have already collected $11.29 million in Housing and Social Development Levy. That compares to an entire year, 2024, when we collected $12.33 million. It therefore means that we are expected to surpass last year's earnings by some distance. Our mantra has always been jobs, jobs, jobs. Job creation will forever be pivotal in my administration's development strategy. My government continues to make a concerted effort to ensure that year after year, the average number of jobs and the number of people employed on Nevis continues to trend upwards. The data from the St. Christopher and Nevis Social Security Board, their statistics department, indicates that the average monthly number of jobs on the island as of 30th June 2025 was 6,398, an increase of 3% when compared to the 6,234 jobs as of June 30th, 2024. The main sectors of employment are public administration and defense, 29%, hotels and restaurants, trade, 21%, wholesale and retail trade, 11%, and the construction sector, 7%. The average number of persons employed as of June 30th, 2025 was 5,898, an increase of 2% when compared to 5,760 persons employed as of 30th June 2024. This data only refers to reported employment. And we fully know, Madam President, that some self-employed persons are not reporting monthly contributions to the Social Security Office. And neither are those persons who engage in casual employment, registering for Social Security or making any contribution payments. It therefore suggests that the actual job situation is even better than what is currently reported. Like previous years, we continue to see the trend of more jobs than persons being available for employment. 6,398 job opportunities, according to Social Security data, versus 5,898 persons available for employment. This void in the job market continues to be filled by persons holding multiple jobs, especially in the hotel and restaurant sector and with private security firms. Let me use this opportunity and this rostrum, as I do every year, to encourage our people to register with and pay their Social Security. It is not a tax, Madam President. It's an investment in your future. It ensures that when you get old, when you get sick, when you get pregnant, when you retire, that there's something there for you. It's an investment in your future. And so while some people think they're being clever by working under the table, collecting their money and not paying Social Security, they are ultimately hurting themselves, because it means that as they get older, as they get sick, as they get pregnant, as they lose work, that it is more difficult for them to live in that period of their lives. And so I continue to encourage, as I do every year, that our people register for and pay their Social Security. Madam President, the average total gross monthly wages paid as of June 30th, 2025 stands at $24.87 million. Put differently, every month, people in Nevis collect $24.87 million in wages. Again, an increase when compared to the average monthly wage of $22.93 million as of June 30th, 2024. This represents an increase of 9% in gross average monthly wages on Nevis. It should also be noted that the average gross wage per employee stood at $4,215 per month as of June 30th, 2025, which represents an increase of 6% when compared to the $3,984 monthly for the corresponding period in 2024. Not only is the number of jobs increasing, but the average wages of our workers are also increasing, Madam President. More jobs, higher wages. A closer look at the wage distribution of the jobs in Nevis as of June 30th, 2025 shows that 685 persons, representing 11% of the workforce, are being paid at the minimum wage level. So of the number of workers, 685 or 11% are being paid at minimum wage. 841 persons, representing 13% of the workforce, are earning wages of $6,500 and more per month. And 76% of our workforce are earning incomes ranging from the minimum wage up to $6,500 per month. These are signs of a healthy, stable, and growing economy. Madam President, our commitment to job creation continues to yield positive results, strengthening our economy and providing a sustainable island for our people. Behind these encouraging numbers are our people, whose lives are improving through new opportunities and increased economic security. By focusing on a diverse economy, we are building resilience, reducing our dependence on any single industry. Key sectors such as construction, tourism, and MSMEs are thriving, and we are committed to fostering this growth through strategic investments, targeted support, and partnerships. Let me then move to public-private partnerships for development. Madam President, we continue to present Nevis as a place open for business and looking for real partners to help us achieve our investment goals. We continue to actively seek real investment and private sector-driven opportunities to help us to achieve these goals. We welcome the development of commercial properties at Chapel Street, Bath Gut, and Pump Road, to name a few. We also recently approved concessions for the expansion of another major commercial property in the Charlestown area. These developments will not only provide significant employment opportunities during the construction phase, but will generate substantial economic activities during the operational phase. We commend the developers of these units, while at the same time encouraging our citizens both at home and in the diaspora to seize the opportunity to make similar investments in their home country. Incidentally, and I should say it now, that all of those commercial properties being developed are being developed by local investors who have benefited from significant concessions from this government. Sometimes, you know, Madam President, we hear the talk that foreign investors get treated better. Not under this government. Local investors are encouraged to come. They get the same concessions as those who are coming in from elsewhere. And these are examples that we see all across the island of local investors stepping up. We invite our diaspora. I keep talking about them. We invite our diaspora to come in as well and assist in our development. Our partnership with Radius Holdings, LLC, and Telemed Partners for the operation of call centers on Nevis has grown stronger over the years. The number of employees at the Radius call center operations in Brownhill has increased to 101 persons and is expected to grow by an additional 25 to 30 persons by the end of January 2026. Employment at Telemed Partners call center operations has similarly expanded over the past year, creating much needed sustainable employment opportunities for our people. This morning on my way here, I confirmed that Telemed now employs 50 persons and expect to add an additional 25 in the new year. Madam President, work on the upgrading of the facilities at the Vance Amri International Airport is moving rapidly. Earlier this year, we finalized an arrangement with the St. Kitts Nevis Anguilla National Bank for a credit facility of $20 million for the purpose of purchasing the surrounding lands. To date, we have completed the purchase of 18 acres of land on the southern side of the runway, along with the purchase of 27 acres of land on the western side of the airport compound. This administration has secured additional funding in the amount of US $45.6 million to complete the build-out of that facility. This includes the commitment from the government of the Republic of China, Taiwan, for funding in the amount of US $19.2 million to be drawn down over the next 2 years to meet the cost of construction of a new fire station, reconstruction of the control tower, realignment of the island main road, expansion of the passenger terminal building, and the construction of a new customs cargo facility and related works. The Mission Taiwan team visited Nevis in early November and held discussions with our technical team on the project and with representatives from the Ministry of Finance and the legal department to finalize arrangements for the signing of the loan agreement and ultimately the final disbursement of funds. Madam President, first disbursement of funds, forgive me. I'm moving ahead of myself. Madam President, our partnership with a third-party financier, the Drahi Foundation, will provide additional financing in the amount of US $25 million for the completion of works on the airfield. Taiwan is funding on the land side, and the Drahi Foundation is funding on the airfield side. These works include the aligning and extension of the existing runway to 6,070 feet, improvement and installation of runway lighting, and the construction of parking spaces for jet traffic, a fuel farm, and related activities. We expect that all arrangements will be in place for groundbreaking and the start of construction early in the new year. The first components of construction will include the realignment of the Island Main Road and the construction of the new fire station, followed by expansion work on the terminal building and the control tower. These works are expected to be funded by the drawdown of funds from the financing arranged for the government of Taiwan. Work on the airfield side of the project will comprise a second phase of the project and is expected to commence in late 2026 to early 2027. We expect that the consultants and designers will have completed their consultations with international aeronautic agencies and finalize the design works for the airside component of the project to begin by that time.
Folks, you're listening to Government at Work, and this evening we are featuring the first half of the 2026 budget presentation. We shall take a short break, and when we return, we shall continue with the first half of the budget presentation as it was presented by the Minister of Finance, the Honorable Mark A.G. Brantley.
So right, St. Thomas is right, St. James is put together and build your land. Right, St. George's and St. Paul's together with St. John's. This land is enough for all to share. No reason to leave and go nowhere. Foreigners can come here from America and England. There is something mighty sweet about my land. And if the foreigners who live here can insist that it's here they're from, then I swear I'll never leave my native land. One people, one country.
Welcome back. We now continue with our budget presentation by the Minister of Finance, the Honorable Mark A.G. Brantley.
Madam President, the establishment of the Special Sustainability Zone, the first of its kind within the Eastern Caribbean, must be seen as a new and proactive approach to public-private sector partnership for development. The build-out of activities within this zone will be a game changer for Nevis, not only elevating our prominence within the region, but also generating significant economic activity across various sectors during both the construction and operational phases. The proposed Destiny development, which is expected to occupy just over 2,000 acres of land, is akin to a high-end ultra-luxury villa and resort development. This development will position Nevis as a destination for high-end investment, surpassing any scale of development that we have seen in our sub-region. I am delighted by the level of public discourse on this proposed development. It demonstrates democracy at work and the need for our people to have a say in the way they wish their country to move forward. My cabinet has held a number of town hall and stakeholder meetings over the past 3 months to garner views that will inform our decisions as to how we move forward. Rest assured, we are taking all the suggestions and recommendations into consideration. Madam President, I wish to assure the public that my government is taking every precaution to ensure that we get the best terms for Nevis. Once we have completed the final negotiations, we'll be in a better position to advise all residents of both St. Kitts and Nevis. The final agreement will be brought to this assembly, for ratification, and will be made public as part of the legislative process. Madam President, allow me now to move to an area that is near and dear to my heart, and that is the entertainment industry. Some refer to it as the creative industry, the orange economy, But I'm focused for today's sitting on the entertainment industry. Madam President, the film industry continues to gain prominence on Nevis. A few years ago, in fact, it was at the height of the COVID-19 pandemic, my administration took the bold step to explore new frontiers and embrace the film industry as a means of tapping into the creative ideas and talents of our people, while at the same time providing employment opportunities. We were proud then to have partnered with MSR Media, a UK-based company, which created the foundation by shooting 7 films on the island of Nevis. Madam President, I'm happy to report that Nevis is now becoming one of the destinations of choice for making movies in the Caribbean. During the period January to October 2025, we partnered with several producers to film at least 6 productions on Nevis. Southern Tide fashion brand conducted a fashion shoot marking its 2nd production on Nevis, showcasing their Spring-Summer 2025 collection. A total of 12 incoming cast and crew, in addition to 6 local crew, participated in that event. Madam President, Stone and Spirit Production, through their producers Ed Annunziato and Blair Stewart, filmed the Colonial Churches of Nevis production, which was an exploration of the island's early colonial history. A total of 7 local cast members and crew participated in this event. The famous Pan Girl production, through its producer and director, our own Miss Juliet Jeffers, was a short film depicting the scene of a daughter finding her rhythm in the echoes of her father's music amid the sea breeze and steel pan rhythms of Nevis. A total of 15 incoming crew and cast, along with 17 local crew and 15 background actors, participated in this production. Incidentally, I'm told they had a grand premiere at NEPAC, which I unfortunately missed because I was away, but I'm told it went extremely well. The Real Housewives of Potomac, a Bravo TV production, filmed the Nevis feature segment for the popular U.S. reality series show, highlighting Nevis's luxury, experiences, and natural beauty. A total of 47 incoming cast and crew, along with 24 local cast and crew, participated in that filming. Saint Kissed, not Kids, Kissed. Saint Kissed, a full-length feature film produced by Octet Productions, was also filmed in Nevis in August of 2025. A total of 40 incoming cast and crew, along with 15 local cast and crew, participated in that event. Apples and Airplanes, a full-length feature film produced by 5-6 Films, was also staged on Nevis. It highlighted a scene of an uptight wedding planner invited by a friend to Nevis where she finds love. Her once uptight persona transforms into a relaxed, warm, and friendly island girl. Love will do that, Madam President. This production featured 30 incoming cast and crew. We also secured PBS. Many of those in the gallery may watch PBS. So PBS Virginia 7 is, I believe, on island already, filming a series called Hometowns, and they'll be doing that throughout the month of December. It is expected that a total of 12 incoming cast and crew will arrive on the island to participate in that filming. And I should add this, that Hometowns is the first international episode that they will film right here on Little Nevis. Madam President, film and media productions continue to serve as a vibrant driver of local economic activity in Nevis. Beyond monetary benefits, these productions provide invaluable tourism exposure, capacity building for local talent, and the promotion of Nevis as a premier film and creative destination. The brand visibility, brand awareness, and public relations that Nevis has received thus far is most favorable, as reflected in the international network productions and published articles. I should add, it's not on my document, I'm not sure how it escaped but I should add that we have already had a commitment for early in the new year for a new film. They say it will be a romance film to be done here in Nevis, and it will star African-American actor Taye Diggs, who's famous from his role in How Stella Got Her Groove Back. We hope he's going to find his groove here in Nevis next year. Let me segue now to the all-important tourism sector, Madam President. Despite ongoing global challenges, the Nevis tourism sector continues to demonstrate resilience, creativity, and adaptability. Our strategic focus on staff development, community engagement, cultural promotion, and destination enhancement have yielded impressive results that have strengthened the foundation upon which we continue to build. My government remains committed to empowering our people to maximize the opportunities offered by our tourism industry. Nevis once again made its mark on the regional stage through the Tourism Youth Congress. I would wish to congratulate Ms. Kayla Claxton of the Gingerland Secondary School. She emerged victorious in the local leg of the competition and sponsored by the Bank of Nevis, our local indigenous bank, and represented Nevis at the regional event in Barbados. Madam President, Mango Fest 2025 was another resounding success, confirming its status as one of the most anticipated events on our tourism calendar and rapidly becoming a bucket list event for people around the region and around the world. This event underscores the increasing appeal of our culinary tourism offerings and the dedication of our local chefs, farmers, and vendors. Another significant success was a cross-channel swim, now ably led by Jane Handsome, and which attracted a record 500 swimmers this year. Infrastructure development and heritage preservation remains central to our agenda. The Bath Hot Springs Upgrade Project has been receiving overwhelmingly positive feedback from residents and visitors. This has truly enhanced the visitor experience at that facility. Work on the Bath Hotel renovation project is also progressing significantly. This project, which is coordinated by the Nevis Historical and Conservation Society, in collaboration with the Ministry of Tourism, represents an important step towards restoring one of the Caribbean's oldest tourism infrastructural sites. The United States Embassy in Bridgetown has committed funding of approximately $300,000, and we are also pursuing additional funding from the CARICOM Development Fund to ensure the timely completion of this iconic heritage project. This project is scheduled for completion during the first half of 2026 and will serve as a national museum, preserving and showcasing Nevis's rich cultural and historical legacy. I pause here to thank the Nevis Historical and Conservation Society for their partnership and to urge them to continue to partner with us in a positive way. Madam President, the launch of a refreshed destination branding initiative by the Nevis Tourism Authority was a major highlight of this fiscal year. This rebranding is intended to boost our tourism promotional efforts overseas as we seek to extend our reach into new and emerging markets while maintaining prominent presence in existing markets. These new initiatives, laid out in the Nevis Integrated Marketing Plan, will serve to strengthen Nevis's market visibility, enhance the quality of the visitor experience, and reinforce the island's position as the Caribbean's premier boutique luxury destination. The designation's tagline, Nevis Naturally, was retained, affirming our island's authentic charm and enduring brand strength. More details, of course, will be provided as the Nevis Tourism Authority rolls out its marketing plan in the new fiscal year. I want to pause here, Madam President, to say that Nevis did something truly historic, some may say controversial. We had some aspects of our new launch done in black and white. And we are so accustomed to the Caribbean being done in vibrant color that we recognize that some, especially some locally, had some criticisms of that effort. But in a crowded market, we understand that to be noticed, one must stand out. And that black and white depiction of some aspects of Nevis caused us to stand out significantly when we premiered our new launch in New York in June of this year. I can now report that as a consequence of those efforts, led by a firm called Tambourine, that Nevis has now received an international award for its relaunch and its marketing. Madam Speaker, as it relates to visitor arrivals, we continue to support flights into the Vance Amory International Airport through partnerships with Cape Air and Winair. In fact, Winair has most graciously agreed to expand their service now to a daily service to St. Martin. In the area of cruise arrivals, we expect a total of 69 cruise calls for this season, with a carrying capacity of 15,769 passengers. This is an improvement of 25% when compared to the cruise sector arrivals for last season. Turning now to our projections for 2026, the New River project will receive priority attention, with a focus on improved bathroom facilities and landscaping, transforming that area into a more visitor-friendly heritage site. The site, which is one of the last sugar mill operations on the island, continues to garner much interest from our visitors. The Malcolm Gishard Recreational Park will celebrate its 5th anniversary of operation during the month of December 2026. This widely used facility has hosted a total of 128 community-based events for the period January to October 2025. In fact, Madam President, not even our own government can sometimes get a booking at that facility. It has become the most popular facility for a variety of activities across the island of Nevis. As we look ahead, Madam President, the Ministry of Tourism remains guided by a purpose-driven agenda, one that integrates the 5 pillars of sustainability. And what are they? People, planet, prosperity, peace, and partnership. We are investing in our people through training and education, protecting our planet by promoting eco-friendly practices, expanding prosperity by strengthening tourism linkages, fostering peace through community and cultural pride, and building partnerships that will position Nevis as a global model for sustainable island tourism. Let me switch now to construction. And before I start on the prepared text, I took a walk in my community this morning, and in the little area that I live in Montpelier, there were 3 villas under construction. 3, within the space of 10 minutes of each other. The construction industry in Nevis continues to be a significant contributor to economic activity. As we traverse the landscape of Nevis, we are amazed by the number of ongoing construction projects, such as the construction of new homes, I just mentioned 3 in my area, extension to existing properties, or construction and expansion of commercial properties. Many of our contractors are indicating the difficulty in attracting suitable skilled workers. This is a clear indication that we're nearing full employment in the construction sector. Further, the data provided by the Department of Physical Planning shows that for the period January to October 2025, a total of 243 applications were received by the department. Of this number, a total of 202 permits have been approved, of which 81 permits were granted for new residential construction, with the remaining 121 permits for building renovation and expansion. Construction work, we advise, has started on most of these approvals. This is a vast improvement when compared to the corresponding period in fiscal year 2024, when only 144 building permits were granted. Moreover, as at October 31st, 2025, there were a total of 162 active construction sites throughout Nevis under periodic monitoring by the officers of the Department of Physical Planning. This is on par with the 168 active construction sites for the same period in 2024. Madam President, The continued growth in this sector is due largely to my government's continued support through our various incentive programs. These programs include the First Time Homeowners Initiative, which is an ongoing program designed to incentivize first-time home construction. I am happy to report that the Ministry of Finance has approved a total of 37 new applicants for enrollment in this program for the fiscal period up to October 31st, 2025. Under these programs, prospective homeowners are granted exemptions from the payment of customs duties and customs service charges on all building materials. This program, along with our incentive program for commercial development and villa condo development, will continue into the new fiscal year. So if there are members out there in the gallery looking to own your first home, the government is partnering with you to make it more affordable. As a new initiative for this fiscal year, we expanded the program to incentivize persons to build additional homes or renovate and expand their existing home through our Build and Renovate program. I want to pause there, Madam President, because prior, it was only for people who were building their first home. The response has been so good that we have said, listen, if your family has grown and you want to expand your existing home, or if you have money and you want to invest in an additional home, we will extend the concessions to you as well under a Build and Renovate program. So we have two programs now running. First Time Homeowners program, and we have the Build and Renovate program. A similar incentive has now been extended to those investing in commercial construction. I am happy to report that up to October 31st, 2025, a total of 82 persons have been enrolled in this Build and Renovate program, generating significant economic activity in the construction sector. And let me pause here because I see some representatives here from the business community. We're not only talking about contractors and construction workers. We're talking about those who are selling building materials, TDC hustlers. We're talking about steel benders. I see my friend here making a lot of money under this government. I'm very happy for him. We're talking about people who are benefiting from these policies. Good governance at work. I invite him to come back over. We intend to continue this Build and Renovate program in the upcoming fiscal year, but with some modifications. The government stands committed to developing a sustainable construction sector as we seek to improve the livelihood of our people and grow Nevis together. Please, for more information, contact our reliable and competent staff at the Ministry of Finance. Let me now move to the agricultural sector. Madam President, the Ministry of Agriculture continues to make remarkable strides in our quest for food security. Our mission remains one of strengthening food security to increase productivity while seeking to build a resilient agricultural and fisheries sector that supports economic growth and community well-being. Madam President, as it relates to agricultural production, innovation continues to be our watchword as we seek to use modern technology to reduce production inputs while maximizing production yields. We continue to advance green or shade house technology as a preferred mode of production, as this technology continues to prove its efficiency and longevity in boosting production yields. Currently, we have a total of 20 shade houses in operation with a total cultivation space of approximately 83,272 square feet, producing at least 75% of our stock of leafy vegetables. These shade houses specialize largely in the production of lettuce, celery, kale, and to a lesser extent, sweet peppers, cucumbers, and tomatoes. Even with this advancement in technology, we are supplying only a fraction of the demand for food items on our island. Young people, you want to get into something, agriculture. Everybody must eat. There's money in agriculture. The data from our Department of Agriculture indicates that for the period January to October 2025, a total of 32.75 acres were under cultivation by both local farmers and the government. This yielded approximately 343,006 pounds of food crops, such as sweet potatoes, onions, pumpkins, cantaloupe, and cabbage. This is an increase of 3% when compared to the cultivation yield of 333,451 pounds for the said period in 2024. These outputs are only meeting a small fraction of our local consumption demand, as year after year we continue to see the importation of a large quantity of food on a weekly basis. In the area of livestock farming, we continue to encourage the use of intensive and semi-intensive farming techniques to meet the increasing demand for meat and meat byproducts. The data, as provided from our main meat processing facility at the abattoir, indicates that for the period January to September 2025, a total of 143,430 pounds of meat and meat byproducts were processed at this facility. This is on par with the 143,802 pounds processed in 2024. Pork was the leading meat type processed, with 67,227 pounds processed in 2025, as compared to the 58,000 pounds processed in 2024, an increase of 16%. The processing of mutton decreased by 3%, moving from 49,083 pounds in 2024 to 47,773 pounds in 2025. The processing of beef and chicken were processed in smaller quantities. Despite this increase in meat products, we are, again, still only meeting a small fraction of our meat consumption needs when we consider the large quantity of meat and meat products that are imported into Nevis on a weekly basis. Madam President, the development of a viable broiler industry is still a priority for my government. I'm happy to report that earlier this year, we signed a contract with Atlantic Poultry Biotech, Inc. in the amount of 1.6 million Eastern Caribbean dollars for the construction of a modern purpose-built poultry processing facility at Prospect. Work is progressing, and it is our anticipation that the first phase of construction of this facility will be completed in the next 18 months. Madam President, as it relates to the fishing industry, we continue to work with our fishers, encouraging them to do more in terms of increasing the quantity of fish and other marine products available for local consumption. Earlier this year, the Department of Marine Resources, in collaboration with our fishers, successfully hosted the annual Fish Festival, conducted fish aggregating device and fish pot making workshops, and established sea moss cultivation plots, all of which are designed to support sustainable livelihoods and strengthen our fishing community. During the upcoming fiscal year, the department will embark on the establishment of at least 10 artificial coral reefs to preserve and enhance our marine ecosystems. This initiative is a forward-looking investment in biodiversity, thus promoting sustainable fishing practices. We continue to make progress toward the development of a new landing site for the Newcastle fisher folk, thus providing a safer, more efficient base for fishing operations and services. Madam President, our Agricultural Open Day, now referred to as Agri-Expo, has evolved and matured to become a premier activity on the annual calendar of events, highlighting the significant work being undertaken by the Ministry and Department of Agriculture. The Expo has grown tremendously and is now attracting attention and attendance from the Federation and the sub-region. This event, which started on the grounds at Prospect Agricultural Station, quickly outgrew that space, resulting in its relocation to the ETW Park. This is the largest showcase of our advances in agricultural production and innovation as it relates to crop production and animal farming. Madam President, the year 2026 will mark the 30th anniversary of the Nevis Agri Expo and will be hosted under the theme, Rooted in History, Utilizing Land and Sea, Agri Expo 30. The Agri Expo has served as a proud showcase for our farmers, fishers, artisans, and cultural groups, highlighting the diversity and strength of Nevisian agriculture and craftsmanship. Next year's celebration will not only honor our agricultural legacy, but also underscore our ability to continue to blend innovation with tradition. The department, our farmers, and our fishers are all already gearing up for this event, at which we expect to have a massive display of crops, animal and fish products, in demonstration of our commitment to building a sustainable future as it relates to food production. To further enhance agricultural productivity, the ministry seeks to procure 2 new tractors to improve land preparation efficiency and reduce delays being experienced by farmers. This will enable better planting schedules and higher yields. To improve staff welfare and operational efficiency, the ministry proposes to commence preparatory work on the reconstruction of its office complex at Prospect. The proposed facility is intended to comprise a 2-story building, providing at least 24,000 square feet of office space, thus enhancing productivity and providing a far better work environment for the staff. Let me turn now, Madam President, to our financial services sector. Regarding our financial services sector, our primary goal has been to increase activities in this sector by at least 50% annually over the medium term. To achieve this, we have invested in our human resource development, invested in technology to enable us to be more proactive in identifying and monitoring risks, continued to amend and update the legislation governing the sector to keep us competitive, continued to foster a culture of compliance, and improved our efficiency through revamping our onboarding procedures. We have introduced more value-added services to our sector, inspired the growth of small firms into larger units, and incentivized the redomiciling of large value-added entities to our jurisdiction. This sector continues to provide significant economic value to the economy of Nevis. The government revenues generated directly from this sector for the period January to October 2025 stood at $16.8 million. The projected outcome for the year 2025 is very favorable, especially when we compare our current performance thus far to the outturn for the entire fiscal year 2024, where the amount of $16.85 million was collected. Let me just emphasize, we have already, as of October this year, collected $16.8 million. And for the whole of last year, we collected $16.85 million. These outcomes are borne out by the activities at the registry monthly. I am really happy to report that as of October 31st, 2025, the total active entities currently on register at the Financial Services Registry stood at 18,780. This is an increase of 20% when compared to the total of 15,685 entities on register as at October 31st, 2024. Further, a total of 3,103 new entities were incorporated during the period January to October 2025, comprising IBCs 2,296, LLCs 672, trusts 105, multiform foundations 30. Madam President, to broaden the array of financial services products available in our jurisdiction, my administration in October 2025 enacted legislation to allow for the incorporation of limited liability partnerships. We came into this very house and passed that law. This is in addition to our earlier enactment this year of legislation for the operationalizing of an online gaming sector on Nevis. As it relates to the online gaming sector, my administration took the decision to work with a single entity through a process referred to as sandboxing. Under this process, there will be no proliferation of registered agents, licensing entities at this time. This sandboxing method will allow the government the time to monitor and adjust our approach as we seek to determine the generally accepted industry best practice for online gaming, after which we will open the sector for wider participation by registered agents. Madam President, this approach allows us to better manage the risks associated with this particular product. Further, the activities falling within this sector are very much ring-fenced, as none of the activities are carried out within our jurisdiction and our citizens are not permitted to participate. Put differently, ladies and gentlemen, there will be no access by residents of St. Kitts and Nevis to online gaming, as is contemplated by this legislation. It must be made clear that the entities which are licensed to be involved in online gaming activities will carry out their gaming activities elsewhere throughout the world and not on the island of Nevis. It is anticipated that the administration will receive a portion of the license fee of between $7,500 to $8,000 from each entity licensed to carry out online gaming activities. These two products add variety to our existing suite of products and offer our clients a wider variety of instruments for their investment decisions. These were all done after careful consultation with industry practitioners, keeping true to our goal of having a sector primarily driven by the market demands as indicated by our industry professionals. Put differently, the government is not sitting and deciding what the industry needs. The government is listening to the industry and responding to what the industry says that it needs. So it's very much a private sector driven approach that we've taken. Madam President, we value the public-private sector partnership that underpins growth and development in this sector. We commit to facilitating dialogue and new product development dictated by the market needs as communicated to us by industry professionals. We continue to attract a cadre of well-known and widely respected providers from the Latin American market and other regions into our jurisdiction. A total of 4 new entities filed applications and were duly licensed as trust and corporate service providers during this fiscal year. We intend to continue to incentivize the establishment of such entities, which now seek to offer Nevis as a jurisdiction of choice for the Latin American market. Madam President, the recently launched Nevis Finance is meant to be that entity to spearhead our efforts into new and emerging markets. We must take the necessary steps to be more visible internationally, and more so in the Latin American market. To this end, my administration has already participated in initiatives as a means of establishing our presence. We were happy to partner with the Society of Trust and Estate Practitioners, STEP, in May of this year as the main sponsor of the STEP Caribbean Conference. Additionally, in September 2025, our legal advisor led a delegation consisting of representatives from our regulation and the supervision department, along with several registered agents, to the STEP LATAM conference in Mexico. Our attendance at this conference provided yet another opportunity for us to develop that close link with the Latin American market. Madam President, I returned to the island just 2 days ago from Panama, where I engaged with leading law firms there to promote a greater business outreach with Nevis. These initiatives all collectively form part of our outreach strategy as we seek to grow the sector in a sustainable manner through the inclusion of more value-added services. Madam President, the international banking sector continues to be an area attracting high levels of interest. To date, there are 6 international banks licensed and operational on Nevis, employing a combined total of 75 employees. In addition, we have received applications from 3 additional entities seeking to be licensed. Our regulators are presently reviewing these applications and will make recommendations in due course. We expect that these new entities will add value to our financial services sector and see additional high-paying jobs being created on Nevis. I wish to pause to commend the staff at the Financial Services Department for their dedication and commitment over the years in enabling this and previous administrations to successfully advance this sector. We truly value your service, as there is no doubt that we have now developed a competent cadre of staff, fully supported by the team at our legal department, to regulate activities across the various product types. I wish to personally, and on behalf of this government, thank our former regulator, Ms. Heidi Lynn Sutton, for her contribution to the development of the sector over the past 10 years. Madam President, we are actively in search of a replacement regulator, and it is our hope that early in this new year, we will have a full-time regulator in place.
Folks, we have come to the end of our Government at Work program for this evening. Join us again next week when we shall bring you part 2 of the budget presentation, which was delivered by the Premier and the Minister of Finance, the Honorable Mark A.G. Brantley. Enjoy the rest of the evening's programming, then have a pleasant night's rest. I'm Keith Scarborough, wishing you a good night.